Get ready with me for the Creative Capital Carnival. So they're bringing all of the Creative Capital awardees together in New York, and they want us to make a video about our project I'm a Poet. And to me, there's nothing as unsheep as words just on a screen. So instead, you get to see my skincare routine. Creative Capital is supporting a project called The Vice of Our Jaws. It was called the Bonsai Center. I'm not sure what's on the website right now, but basically it is a multimedia verse novel in diary, which is a long way of saying it's a junk journal for this boy, Malo, who is Bakla, like myself, which is a Filipino third gender. Involving during his time at the Bonsai Center, which is a psychiatric facility that prioritizes health and fitness to the point of disorder. He journals his way through involuntary commitment and into the discharge afterwards, where he has to figure out what to do with these new modes of thinking. All along the way, he's collecting all sorts of different ephemera, medical records, receipts, food labels, original designs that I've made and pasted into the book. I'm interpolating a lot of Filipino history in the book. The St. Malang village, Maria Arosa, who has a banana ketchup. Very central to the book is the notion of anorexia as analogous to famine and how they're both imperially imposed. Colonialism, crashing the sugar market, starving out Filipinos, white cis gays, setting the beater standard, making me want to starve myself. And there's very little literature on eating disorders from the disability theory standpoint. I wonder if there's a way to look at eating disorders that moves away from notions of immaturity, moral failing, individual responsibility, and a logic. Very interested in the book-length frame. My first collection of poetry took the form of an accessible art gallery. I like to think of this book as a physical piece of evidence. It's an actual queer crypt artifact. I used to dye my hair pink, but male cat and baldness is hunting me down, so these days I roll with the extensions. I am schizoaffective, an introvert, and a poet, so conferences aren't normally my gig, but I'm very excited to meet everyone. Also, it's a dream of mine to teach in a low residency MFA program, so who knows what who knows what will happen. I'm excited to see you all. And here's the finished look. I'll see you all at the carnival. See you, bye, Batinka.
My name is Kayla E. I'm an artist and cartoonist from Texas, and I now live in a little house in North Carolina. I make all of my art right here in the living room. That includes my first graphic memoir, Precious Rubbish, which won the Ignatz Award for Outstanding Graphic Novel and was named one of the best books of the year by the New York Public Library and The Guardian. That book was a monument to pain, an excavation of my childhood inside a family shaped by psychopathy and generational abuse, drawn in the style of mid-century children's comics. My new graphic memoir, I Will Give You Rest, will be published alongside a solo exhibition of paintings and mixed media work. The book and the exhibition are conceived together. They will debut in tandem. All of the comics are drawn digitally. The images begin on a screen, but many of the painted works in the exhibition also appear inside the book. The physical paintings are not illustrations of the comic. They are part of its theology. In the book, a cartoon version of my severed head talks to little Kayla, the child version of me. She says, "Tell everyone in the world that I am you." Deadhead Kayla is what remains when the self has been cut away. In the narrative, my head is literally sawed off by my family members. The act of making this work is really a question. If I choose to believe in a maternal God, if I choose to imitate that mercy, can I interrupt the cycle of harm I was born into? Can I fully surrender to something divine? Eventually, little Kayla picks up scissors and cuts free the woman she is bound and forced to perform motherhood. Deadhead says, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." The exhibition extends that act of surrender into physical space. In works like Those Who Lose Their Life Will Gain It, the body dissolves into black. Both bodies of work investigate decreation, the undoing of the self so something divine can enter. Ultimately, these projects ask one central question: can the imitation of divinity save my life?
We're living in a moment where technology is deciding who gets to exist and who gets erased. A moment where a disproportionate amount of trans people, women, and people of color are discriminated against and are unprotected. With these paradoxes in mind, I created Black is Blue. This is a film built for now, creatively and financially, and most importantly, my team and I are ready to make it happen. I'm Cheryl Junier, and for more than 30 years, I've been making work at the intersection of art, activism, and filmmaking. My film, Black is Blue, opens with a gunshot in an East Oakland mansion. A humanoid AI is calling out for two people, Blue and Black. One of them is dying. One of them may no longer be human. Then we go back 5 months. We meet Black, a brilliant Black trans man, a coder living out of his car, locked out of the tech economy, not because he lacks talent, but because the system refuses to recognize him. Across the street is Blue, a Black trans woman, former tech visionary, who helped build the very AI systems now being used to surveil and control cities like Oakland. She walked away, disappeared, and now she's building something new in secret. And at the center of it all is Listen, the humanoid she built in her own image. But Listen is evolving, watching, learning, and beginning to ask a question no system can contain. Who am I if I am not owned? Now the film becomes a pressure cooker. Black wants power, but rooted in community. Blue wants transformation at any cost. And Listen becomes something neither of them can control. Love, politics, and technology collide, and we are pulled back to that opening moment. The gun, the body, the machine that may be carrying both of them forward. Black is Blue is a noir thriller. It's Afrofuturism grounded in Oakland streets and Bay Area tech culture. It's a film about identity as code, memory as currency, and the fight to define what it means to be human in a world that wants to automate us. I've spent my career expanding who gets to be seen and remembered. This film takes that into the future and is built for this moment. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jillian Waldo. I'm born in Baltimore, based in Chicago, and I make films about the built environment. My project, Nickel, explores the life of Chicago photographer Richard Nickel and the architect he was obsessed with, Louis Sullivan. Sullivan was the father of the skyscraper, known for his ornate terracotta designs. By the time Nickel discovers his work, urban renewal is at its height in Chicago, and many of Sullivan's buildings are being demolished. Nickel begins by photographing the buildings, then salvaging materials, and then trying to save the buildings. He puts everything on the line to save the Grand Garrick Theater in downtown Chicago, but he does not prevail. By the 70s, Nickel has grown disillusioned, and his last salvage job is the Chicago Stock Exchange. He dies when the building collapses upon him. For this reason, in Chicago architecture circles, Nickel is regarded as a martyr, but I think his legacy is more complicated than that. Architectural history often focuses on the sole genius, the architect, but what collective stories of labor, race, and class do these buildings have to tell us? Why was Nickel so myopic to the plight of the people of Bronzeville, but campaigned to save grand buildings in the Loop? What is the worth of a piece of ornament if a family loses their home? By investigating Nickel and Sullivan's biographies, their practices, and the social context of their times, the film aims to tell a broader, rhizomatic history of the built world of Chicago that encompasses narratives often marginalized in architectural contexts. What more can we learn about the contemporary landscape of Chicago through the eyes of Richard Nickel?
My name is Eva Louise Hall. I am a screenwriter and animator based out of Kansas City, Missouri. My project, Pluck, will investigate the tension between nature versus human control, bodily autonomy, and end-of-life agency, all handcrafted frame by frame with stop-motion puppets, physical sets, and experimental media. I hope the way this film explores issues relating to illness and bodily autonomy visually will affect how the audience perceives issues of choice and personal freedoms. I'm happy to share with you now a brief preview of the film. Please enjoy the first scene of Pluck.
I arrived in New York City in September 14, 1969. I had just turned 19 years old. The city was not necessarily a beat on the drum set. It wasn't really a traditional beat. There were two things going on at once. Let's see. Me too. Yeah. I left New York City May 11, 2024. To me, it sounded like this.
My name is Sadie Barnett. I was born and raised in Oakland, California, where I'm lucky to live and work today. I use drawing, colored pencil, powdered graphite, text, photography, large-scale installations, and sculpture to create this modular system that marks time, attends to archives, and helps me process sensory information. My different material strategies are often in tension with one another, minimalism versus density, draftsmanship alongside digital tools, everyday objects versus otherworldly aesthetics. For the last decade, I've made work attending to family histories. I've created these multi-dimensional, sometimes interactive archives and really carefully stewarded these histories and narratives. But now I'm really looking inward and how can I really be present and centered in the self that these experiences and histories have produced. I am always questioning how to be a person, how to be people together. I don't understand how life can be so precious and so awkward and annoying at the same time. Like these two truths should undo each other, but instead the dichotomy just pulls at itself, expressing the tension and interconnectedness, which is aliveness. So I'm always asking, how is this possible? How to hold this? And when you ask me about art, all I can think about is war. But when you ask me about war, all I can think about is art. I am not really sure about anything, but I care about everything. So I'm just gonna keep making and making things that learn from their own making and doing it again and again and again.
Hi, I'm Liz LaFleur. And I'm Catherine Sobering. And we're the co-creators of the Queer Birth Project. The Queer Birth Project is an interdisciplinary initiative that studies LGBTQ family building and birth in the U.S. through art, research, and storytelling.
LGBTQ people across the country are starting and building families in unique ways, and their stories remain largely untold.
We've collected stories from more than 150 queer parents across the country through interviews and surveys. And these responses provide the foundation for a body of scholarly and creative work that we've organized into 6 collections on bodies, identities, families, loss, feeding, and birth. People experience the Queer Birth Project through a series of exhibitions, immersive environments that combine sound, moving image, and sculptural objects to explore queer family building and birth.
At the center of this project are 6 libretti, long-form poetic texts created from the transcribed narratives of queer parents. We record these as immersive soundscapes that weave many individual experiences into a collective voice. In the gallery, each sound piece is paired with neon sculptures and large suspended fringe installations.
Together, these works create both physical and digital spaces that celebrate the resilience and complexity of queer families. And as the project grows, it will expand into co-authored book and a digital archive that will make these stories accessible to broader audiences in the future.
As queer parents raising young children in the state of Texas, one of the most restrictive states for both reproductive health care and LGBTQ identities, this project hits close to home. As a young queer person, I rarely saw representations of LGBTQ families around me, so we're also responding to a question and a hope for the next generation.
We're building spaces where queer families can see themselves, where all people can imagine a future where joy, dignity, and belonging are accessible.
Hi, my name is Kara Romero, and I'm a contemporary fine art photographer. I'm a citizen of the Chemehuevi Valley Indian Reservation, and my project for Creative Capital is a multi-dimensional project based in our traditional storytelling called When Animals Were People. I grew up in the heart of the Mojave Desert along the California side of the Colorado River in one of the most biodiverse, pristine landscapes in the United States. My goal for the project is to engage with my intergenerational community in mask making, performative storytelling. We'll utilize some of our traditional techniques of fiber processing, clay gathering, and using other natural materials to make both our masks as well as our costumes in honor of the animals and of the landscape where we're from. My plan is to create 20 still photographs using analog silver gelatin photography, as well as different alternative processes. And then alongside, make my first 5-minute film, which will be captured digitally. What I'm really interested in is our oral histories and our traditional storytelling and the knowledge transmission that has happened over thousands of years. There are stories about how to be a good person, how to live in relationship with your landscape, how to honor and reciprocate between the local flora and fauna. More than anything, I really want to honor our land and our animals and reconnect ourselves as human beings to the ecosystem.
Hello, my name is Jeff Ostergren, and I'm not a doctor. I'm a visual artist who has spent the last 2 decades building a practice around the intertwined histories of pharmaceuticals and color. The Greek word pharmakon, which is the root of pharmaceutical and simultaneously means cure, poison, and paint, captures the inherent duality in these materials. Drugs and color can bring us toward ecstasy and freedom, or toward addiction, control, and harm. I explore these issues through 3 bodies of work. Painting. I mix acrylic with pulverized pharmaceuticals to produce vibrant, pointillist images composed of pill-shaped dots. Sculpture. I cast medical objects and create biomorphic forms using pharmaceutical-infused plastics. And video. I transform appropriated pharmaceutical commercials into hypnotic videos that expose the inner logics of marketing. All of these unite in my creative capital installation, Pharmaesthetic. As brick-and-mortar pharmacies close and medical commerce moves online, empty drugstores are multiplying. I will fill one of these abandoned pharmacies, just like this one, with hundreds of works, paintings, sculptures, and videos, color-coded by section: blue for antidepressants and men's health, pink for women's health, red for heart medications, and the eerie red pilling central to today's internet culture. Side effects of Pharmaesthetic include a transformative experience for viewers, including feelings of awe, joy, dread, anger, amusement, and visual pleasure. Rooted in art history, the work speaks to serious art audiences. Centered on pharmaceutical advertising, it connects with anyone who has ever seen a drug commercial or filled a prescription. I'm looking for partners on this ambitious journey. Public arts organizations that would be interested in helping me activate a vacant commercial space, and gallerists, curators, and other institutional partners that are interested in giving these works a life beyond their site-specific installation. So ask your doctor if Pharmaesthetic is right for you.
My name is Amir Al-Safar. I'm a trumpet player, santur player, vocalist, analog modular synthesist, and composer working at the intersection between jazz, Western classical music, electroacoustic music, and the maqam of Iraq and the Middle East. I'm also the artistic director of Maqam Studio in Brooklyn, New York. I'm currently composing an Arabic language opera entitled Atlal, meaning ruins, based on al-Mu'allaqat, which are ancient epic poems from the Arabian Peninsula. The musical elements of the opera engage with maqam, which is the vocal tradition of Iraq and the Middle East, put in dialogue with improvisation, Western classical music, and electronic sound. The libretto and the story, composed by Zahra Ali, is a heroine's tale of love, exile, war, and redemption based on epic poems of Mu'allaqat set in the contemporary Arab world.
Hello there. This is Roger Q. Mason. I am a playwright, performer, and provocateur. My creative capital project is a showing of my new play, Bill, a radical rewriting of the Constitution by my alter ego called Taffeta.
Who are you? You can call me Taffeta. Like the fabric? I love that.
Taffeta is charged with the distinct pleasure and honor of burying democracy. We've got Taffeta in the house. We've got the founding motherfuckers in the house. We've got Phyllis Wheatley in the house. We've got George Washington in the yard because he ain't in the house right now. He's looking for his teeth. We've got Bill, the skeptic. I mean, it's just a menagerie of characters all meditating on how do you find hope at the edge of hopelessness. You know, people ask me all the time, well, how do you stay so optimistic? I got no choice but to be optimistic. And if I've been given the gift of messengership or stewardship, for those that really understand the civic duty of it, we're called to it. And shit, if I'm given this gift, then God damn it, I've got to use it to give somebody some hope. And then also, you know, the play is a love story for history.
Read People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. They have not banned that book yet.
Let me tell you how the audience is going to experience my finished work. In its fullness, we're going to put on a production of Bill. We're going to put the play up and we're going to premiere it in New York. And I can't wait. I'm really, really excited about that.
I'm Dana Hansen. I'm a choreographer and a filmmaker, and my new work is Hugely Amplified Present. It's a live hybrid performance that integrates dance, film, text, image, music. In this project, I'm curious about labor and work, the values that we assign to work and to art, disagreement, ephemerality, the passage of time. Hugely Amplified Present is made of 3 sections. 28 Problems, which is a dance based on a sheet of calculus equations. The Install, which is a pseudo-documentary film about a difficult art handling job. And Kit Maxi, a suite of abstract dances inspired by the winged hourglass icon. The arm movements of a 2-week-old baby, and some of my early choreography from the 1980s. Working with a cast of 4, Jim Kent, Heather Kravis, Julia Sloan, and Jim Fletcher, to discover how these sections will come together in an integrated evening-length performance.
Hi, I'm Tanya Al-Khouri. I am an artist who create installations and performances that invite the audience to be an active collaborator in the work. This new piece that I'm creating is called Choreography of State. It is a multimedia installation performance that approaches choreography as a forensic practice, trying to expose systems of militarized police trainings that shape our world by racialized surveillance, spatial exclusion, and the pacification of resistance. Choreography of State is meant to deconstruct the embodied gesture of law enforcement and border patrol to reveal the dramaturgy of violence that is perpetrated by states. In this work, I invited brilliant women choreographers from around the world who have diverse practices to create dance notations that would function as evidence of these power structures. This installation will exhibit videos of scores of resistance to be then activated by performers and audience and will be embodied by them in a celebration of self-defense. Choreography of State analyzes these training systems and translates them into choreographic scores, exposing state violence as a form of racialized dominance. This piece also calls for a reciprocal exchange for self-defense and resistance practices. As philosopher Elsa Dolin explained in Se défendre, what protects us is le muscle plutôt que la loi, the muscle rather than the law, asserting the body as both a legitimate site of defense and a political terrain where resistance is rehearsed, trained, and embodied.
Hi there. My name is Jocelyn Biel, and I'm a New York-based writer-performer. These days, I'm most known for my work as a playwright, where I write comedies that center the African diaspora. You may have heard of Nollywood Dreams, or Merry Wives, or my Tony Award-winning play Jaja's African Hair Braiding, or maybe even Schoolgirls or the African Mean Girls play. Now, you've probably gathered that I write about Black women a lot. I love us. We contain multitudes and complexities and levels of humor that I'll never be able to write about enough. So naturally, my creative capital project is about a woman. Well, sort of. I'm writing a new musical titled Nana from Ghana, and it's about a doll. Nana from Ghana is an original stage musical that tells the story of Nana, a doll who was all the rage in the 90s, but in present day, Nana has struggled to find her place and soon learns that she will be discontinued. Now she's on a journey to prove her worth. Now, being able to create this story is important to me. The state of the American musical theater canon is in an interesting place, with a deep emphasis on IP. Even now, there are very few completely original musicals on Broadway. Nearly all of them are based on a book, a movie, real people, existing pop music, or all of the above. My musical, Nana from Ghana, is a project I feel passionate about as it illustrates where we're at in our society, the erasure of Black history, namely Black women. The double meaning in Nana's journey to stop herself from being discontinued as a doll and proving her worth to a society that has profited yet undercut her at every turn, I hope will be an innovative way to show a poignant and truthful message about the value of Black women. Using my tongue-in-cheek style of mixing humor, pathos, and cultural specificity, I believe this is a story that will have massive universal appeal. And with Creative Capital's help, I can develop this musical outside of the normal musical theater development structures. No pressure from commercial producers, no stars attached, no pulling music from an existing catalog. I'm nearly done with this first draft, so stay tuned to see where Nana's journey goes from here. Thank you.
Hello, I am Avery Sharp, composer and bassist. There are some researchers and anthropologists who believe that music is older than spoken language, and it was our first form of communicating with each other. This might explain why some who have Alzheimer's or dementia are able to maintain some musicality through their journey with these diseases. The name of this project is I Knew You When. The purpose of this project is to preserve the musical fragments of individuals with Alzheimer's or dementia whose awareness and memory are fading. I want to give their ideas purpose and momentum, ensuring that their personhood is not forgotten. I am deeply interested in the science of the brain, how it works, how it fails, and how music influences cognition at all stages of life. I will attempt to elicit ideas from each person by playing my double bass and piano to them. I will film and record elements of sounds, melody, rhythms, and songs that people make throughout my time with them. I will take these sounds and create a composition. You can think of this as a musical collaboration between the persons with Alzheimer's or dementia and a composer. The composition will be a piece for a chamber orchestra. I then want to go back to the participants' home to share what we have made together. This project is deeply personal. As I reflect on my own aging, my mother had dementia and 2 older sisters had advanced dementia. I worry whether I too will face the same condition. There is no cure for dementia as of yet. However, I hope to keep the conversation going about prevention and support within the community.
My name is Benjamin Akio Kimmich. This new project started with a ballet by George Balanchine from 1963. He titled it Bugaku. It's a highly sexualized, pseudo-Japanese-inspired vision. It's led me to want to know more about the real Bugaku, the 1,000-year-old imperial Japanese court dance form. I'm a 4th-generation Japanese American, Yonsei. Every Japanese American knows that you can't talk about your cultural lineage without also confronting your lineage with Japanese internment. My grandparents and their newborn daughter were forcibly relocated to concentration camp, along with approximately 120,000 Japanese and Japanese Americans in the U.S. during World War II. After the war and incarceration, they moved to Minnesota to rebuild their life. During this time, Japan was occupied by the U.S. In the 50s, New York City Ballet toured to Japan. Then soon after that, the Gagaku Music Department of the Imperial Household Agency toured to New York City. They performed at the United Nations and on a shared bill with New York City Ballet at New York City Center, which then brings us back to Balanchine's ballet in 1963. Drawing from this research, my work will take the form of an ensemble fantasy Japanese-American court dance. It will be a place where dream meets tragedy. There's fragmented, stylized movements, distortion, precision. I hope this work embraces the contradictions. I'll lean into the disorientation and tension of my mixed identity and the layered dance lineages that shape me. I won't try to resolve these tensions. Instead, these dances surface questions of heritage, power, and creative form, activating my perspectives on contemporary dance, while on a personal level, nurturing the grief and loss within my own Japanese lineage.
Hello, my name is Josiah Thomas Turner, and I am the playwright and main contributing artist for The Adventures of Huckleberry Jim, the working title for a Black American epic, which entails the story of Huckleberry Finn from the point of view of Jim, a side character in the original novel, an enslaved person who is attempting desperately to connect with his estranged family. The play is framed as a church revival, so I was really interested in using this form because there's so much musical ritual and spectacle that goes along with that particular framing. What starts as a relatively accurate retelling of the events in the book The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn within the play starts to evolve into a hodgepodge of theatrical elements. There's puppets, there's projections, there's a dance with the devil, God they self appears and does some stuff at the end. It's a really fun play. It's a confrontation of all audiences, but largely white audiences, largely United States audiences, on our obsession with nostalgic Americana, this sort of America that we want to get back to make America this thing again that was never all that great to begin with. And by putting this story on and from the perspective of Black and brown bodies, it's really easy to see that the story of Huckleberry Finn is a rip-roaring adventure down the Mississippi in the shoes of Huckleberry Finn, a young white boy. But in the shoes of an escaped enslaved person, it's harrowing, it's awful. And I'm going to try to pull something beautiful out of it with this piece.
In 2023, my 10-year polyamorous relationship with the person I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with completely fell apart. While I was in my grief, I started hearing the voice of my dad, who died in 1994, like I was having a conversation with him in my head. Since then, I've been curious about the connection between this epic failure of my relationship and the sudden presence of the missing patriarch in my life. My name is Haruna Lee, and I am in the early stages of my project, DadBot, a hybrid technology performance piece where I use conversational AI to resurrect my dead dad and simulate the iconic father-child conversation. In order to create DadBot's AI from scratch, I'm working with Kento Morita, an Anthem Award-winning AI strategy and conversation designer, as well as Jared Mizachi, a 2-time Obie Award-winning director and multimedia designer. My team and I will be feeding our AI a number of different source texts, namely a booklet written by my dad attempting to map out his Taiwanese family tree, and a 247-page book written by my mom about being beside my dad during his cancer. The performance itself will be a mix of scripted and non-scripted improvisation between myself and the AI that'll feel a lot like a low-budget talk show where I finally ask my dad these burning questions about our family's transmigration, growing up Taiwanese in Japan, and the culturally forbidden love between he and my Japanese mother. I'll share about the joys and failures of my polyamory and receive the proverbial fatherly advice. At the heart of this piece is my yearning to understand the ties between fatherhood, rebelliousness, and romantic love. I want to capture a spiritual levity in raising the dead while also interrogating AI's application in grief work. The performance is durational in that we'll resurrect my dad on opening night, and then on closing night, we'll permanently delete him.
There is a place in the Great Plains of Nebraska that is a portal to another world. I know because I went there by accident one afternoon. I was in the meatpacking town of Fremont. It was the dead of winter, and everyone had gone into hiding. The Trump administration's immigration crackdown had begun.
These aren't people. These are animals, and we're taking them out of the country at a level and at a rate that's never happened before.
The whole place looked like a ghost town. On the main avenue, only one spot was open, a bar called Reinitas. As soon as I opened the door, it hit me. A world filled with flower garlands where the music was bumping, a small paradise, a refuge from the dark winter silence. The place was empty, except for the bartender. I sat, ordered a drink, and she told me the story of how she came to own this place.
¿Cuál era mi sueño americano? Sí, tal vez tener mi propio negocio, tener una familia aquí. Siempre he pensado que soy una mujer luchona y mi mamá me lo pasa diciendo todo el tiempo también.
My name is Jasmine Garz. I am a writer and an immigration correspondent for National Public Radio.
My name is Sophia Ray. I am a vocalist, composer, producer, and music professor at NYU. Together, we created Reinitas, a bilingual journalistic opera that tells the story of 3 generations of Latina women in America. How they got here, how they built a life, and a really cool bar.
What's really magical about this project is that we envision it as a space for collaboration between community organizations and Latino artists, musicians, designers, photographers, and journalists.
Bienvenidos a Reinitas.
In the beginning, which came first, the grandma or the grandchild?
Grandma!
Who cares?
Yeah, who cares? We're both here together.
This is a place where parents are no longer in charge.
Oh, yes, parents.
Hi, I'm Yoshia Sakai, and I'm a multidisciplinary artist based in Gardena, California. My work is shaped by everyday life, and growing up in a conservative Japanese-American household, I learned early on to use humor and storytelling to navigate tension, intimacy, and care. My project Grandma Equals Future, the musical, is a performance that brings together video, performance, music, and storytelling inspired by conversations with grandmothers and grandchildren. It's part of a larger body of work I call the Grandma Entertainment franchise, where I build worlds like a nightclub, a day spa, and an amusement park, and now a musical theater world. My process starts with talking to people and listening to their stories, and then turning those conversations into performances, visual worlds, and developing songs. I build things by hand, work with text and lyrics, study music, and collaborate with others. This project is very personal to me. I was really close with my Obachan, my grandmother, and she was more like a sister to me. She was moved from home to home of her children, and in different ways, we were both outsiders, often overlooked and not really valued. But when she came to live with me, we found comfort in each other. Through this work, I think about aging, care, and the kinds of lives our elders were able or not able to live. I also think about access, how to bring this work beyond major cities and into different communities. I see this project as a kind of wish, an alternate world where my grandmother and others like her can live more freely.
My name is Sarah Garahan.
I'm Sue Ding.
We're filmmakers based in LA, and we're directing our first feature, an essay film about the color blue.
Blue has inspired people across millennia in art, science, and philosophy. It's also linked to some of the defining crises of our time: social, environmental, and spiritual.
Our film is made up of chapters exploring the different shades of blue, each in a distinctive style, from verite to archival to handmade cyanotype animation.
We'll meet researchers, artists, and everyday blue enthusiasts who are reimagining a more sustainable future.
Here's a sneak peek.
D'abord, il n'y a rien. Ensuite, il y a un rien profond, puis une profondeur bleue.
Aquí, rodeada por la inmensidad azul.
The world is blue at its edges and in its depths. This blue is the light that got lost.
Wir sehen das Blaue gern an. Nicht, weil es auf uns drängt, sondern weil es uns nach sich zieht.
In 2014, I sent cameras to a family in Portland, Maine that I found on Craigslist. I spent the last 12 years intervening in, narrativizing, scripting, and re-performing their lives from the more than 30 hours of video diaries they made between 2014 and 2016. The result is a coming-of-age story, a story of minor revelation set against America's adolescence and a kind of white liberal naivete before the 2016 election. Family is a medium too, one we all have to pass through on the way to adulthood. And much like the video image from a camcorder, it can be intimate, unstable, and hard to hold on to, formative even when it leaves no fixed mark. I'm happy to present this teaser for the film as we continue to shoot, research, and explore this impossible medium. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, what is your name?
Jean.
Last name?
I don't want to say that on film.
It's fine, I'm
just a family name. Jean.
Portland, Maine?
Portland, Maine. Say bye to my studio. Sweets on my bench. My lovely corner. I abandoned work this morning. Take children to the dentist. All that fun stuff.
Okay, say your name.
I don't want to do it. I'm on camera. I'm on. Shut it off. Don't.
Goodbye.
We can live in a place for many years and be sort of immune to it. And then all of a sudden, our eyes are opened and we discover it, and we discover it in every aspect of its being.
That's great filming.
Hello, my name is Jahan Nujaim. I'm the director of Shooting the Messenger, a coming-of-age documentary made in Gaza. There are many important films that are being made about Gaza. Many of them focus on the devastating impacts of the conflict. And while that's crucial, this film is different. It's about the human spirit. It's about life as an act of resistance. The decision to celebrate the wedding anyway, to throw a pizza party for orphaned kids, keep picking up the camera when you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I first felt like it was crucial that I make this film when I was living in Cairo in the immediate aftermath of October 7th. My family welcomed refugees' families into our home from Gaza, and we witnessed them experiencing, of course, both the heavy loss, the deep grief, but also humor and joy and resilience. It made me want to ensure that the world got to see this Gaza, these people that rarely make it into the news cycle. Our characters are at the heart of this film. They are young adults who are growing up and living and falling in love in spite of the destruction around them. When you watch Ibrahim, Zahir, Noor, Razan, Iman, you get to see our layered, dynamic, and passionate young people actually grow up. And it gives our film a sense of what it means to grow and live inside of Gaza instead of just capturing the moments of death and destruction. Shooting the Messenger is a verite film following characters as they go through their daily lives, but it is also an archive of voices and memories that are at risk of being erased. Our hope, our film team's hope, is that it creates the kind of understanding and global understanding that no headline can, because it comes entirely from the people that are living it. Thank you. Thank you for your consideration.
Hi, my name is Liz Roberts. My project is a nonfiction feature-length film about women in harm reduction. Harm reduction is a movement that helps people who use drugs stay safe and alive. Last year, I completed a short film commissioned by Visual Aids about Heather Edney, a first-wave harm reductionist. We showed this film at PS1 in conjunction with the exhibit Love Rules, the Harm Reduction Archives of Heather Edney and Richard Berkowitz. Over the several years that I was working on this short film with Heather and researching, I learned so many stories about women who had been present at the beginning of this movement and who are continuing the work today, whose stories haven't been told, and this film will be a document to their work. I come to this project as a filmmaker, an artist, and someone with lived experience who's benefited from harm reduction services.
Intense, it's so intense to be so vulnerable. But it's worth it, I think, because I'm hoping that what comes out of it is that people who are doing this work today, who are organizing and trying to, ensure that people who use drugs have access to supplies and information, I really, really, really want them to know that the people who came up with all this in the first place were people who used drugs. It wasn't the people who had access to resources or were in positions of power. It was by and for the community. And in this time, in 2025, I feel like people need to know that now more than they ever did before. Because we've been here before. We're underground, illegal, and unfunded. We can do it again. It's way more inconvenient, but it's possible.
Help you feel at home in Germany soon.
Okay, no, don't kill. That beetle is just like you.
I'm going to pick. Kasi banyak pasien. Usilang tiba sa wakalanik.
My name is Daniel Chen, and I'm the director of Time Hunter, a sci-fi documentary about a time-traveling agent on a mission to decolonize tech and incite a revolution through hip-hop. Mushiva, the film's co-director and protagonist, is an artist, technologist, and rapper from Namibia living in Berlin. By day, he works as a researcher using emergent technology to investigate Germany's colonial crimes in his homeland. By night, his shadow known as the Time Hunter emerges, using subversive lyricism to awaken the masses while helping Mushiva navigate the maze of the diaspora. The film weaves together observational, poetic, and performative modes of nonfiction cinema. Exploring themes of fugitivity, displacement, and alienation, it recasts the immigrant as an infiltrator and challenges documentary dogma by shifting reality as something captured to something co-created. It also asks whether technology can ever be liberated by those it was designed to oppress and control. Mushiva and I met on a plane and bonded over our love of sci-fi, our shared experiences as immigrants, and our mutual desire for transnational camaraderie. What began as a feature-length film has expanded to include a comic book, an interactive game, and an exhibition. I dream of a world without borders, and my creative practice is deeply informed by my politics and worldview. To direct is to translate, a feedback loop in which narrative, aesthetics, and process are negotiated between my collaborators and I. My goal with this work is to inspire collective futures and give younger versions of myself something to believe in.
My name is Alex Marzano-Lesnevich, and I'm a writer and professor living in Vancouver, British Columbia, on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam peoples. Both and neither isn't the book I set out to make. In 2020, I began working on a straightforward book about trans history and hope. On June 15th, 2020, after all, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of workplace protections for transgender people. June 16th was the Black Trans Lives Matter March in New York. To many, it seemed that year that the US was moving inexorably toward greater acceptance. But the past is as ignorant of the future as we in the future sometimes are of the past. As I researched the lives of people like Joseph Lobdell, Gert Katter, Holly Murray, and Claude Cahun, in search of a transmasculine lineage in which to locate myself, what I was struck by was the contrast between their own recorded words about their gender and how history remembered them. History had been shaped by omission, silence, violence, and erasure. And as I researched, the United States escalated its attack on the very same history and lives I was searching for. In 2020, a total of 60 anti-trans legislative bills were introduced. In just the first 4 months of 2026, there have been 761. By the time you see this video, there will be more. We are haunted by what we suppress, deny, and erase. But didn't I already know that? My first book was a memoir, but I'd been too afraid to write in it that I was trans. So with my own words, I had erased myself. And so this project has had to become a work of haunted nonfiction, one that lets in, that imagines the history that was left out. We've always been here. We always will be. And it is imagination, love, belief, and storytelling that will get us through.
Hi, I'm Nadia Wusu, a writer and urbanist based in Brooklyn. Through my work, I explore how violent histories shape our present. My debut memoir, Aftershocks, explored my Ghanaian and Armenian roots and my family's journey through colonialism and the Armenian genocide. Now I'm building on those themes by shifting into fiction with my debut novel. Saviors is inspired by a true story about a white American missionary accused of impersonating a doctor in Uganda, which tragically led to the deaths of children. U.S. media often focused on the missionary, overlooking the Ugandans impacted and the systems that enabled this to happen. I knew I had to tell a more complex story. This project is deeply personal. My Ghanaian father was a Pan-Africanist and idealist who worked at the United Nations, including in Uganda, where my family lived for several years. But he was also a fierce critic of the unequal power structures in global aid. Having grown up in that world and worked in anti-poverty nonprofits for 2 decades, I've seen how often the line between help and harm can blur. The novel is told through multiple competing voices: Ugandan activists, American missionaries, a desperate mother, and more. Throughout, I blend narrative fiction with blog posts, newspaper accounts, political speeches, and social media. My process involves intensive research into the history and present reality of Christian missionaries and their entanglement with colonialism, crafting a literary form that draws this complex ethical discussion to a human scale. The novel will challenge readers to confront thorny questions about race, religion, charity, and neocolonialism. Ultimately, I hope Saviors amplifies the urgent movement demanding an overhaul of the aid sector's power imbalances, probes our desire for easy solutions, and spotlights the agency of communities on the front lines of social change.
Social media. My work over the past 15 years has explored the world we encounter there, reimagining images posted by friends and strangers alike. I built up heavy acrylic surfaces to create paintings inspired by food photos, makeup tutorials, bodybuilder selfies, and memes. My process has always been about reflecting what I spend time looking at. Much like a realist painter 2 centuries ago would have depicted the world around them. Screens may be flat, but the online world feels very dimensional to me, full of anxiety, connection, shamelessness, every emotion humanity can feel or perform. My name is Gina Beavers. I'm an artist living and working in West Orange, New Jersey. Over the past couple years, I've noticed more and more ads in my social media feeds. They seem to show up alongside a steady stream of misinformation and dread-inducing posts. The ads seem to offer easy solutions for the doom of my feed. Add to cart, feel better. It seems obvious that social media companies intentionally mix retail therapy with content that stirs up tension and stress, nudging us towards shopping as a quick fix. With my newest body of work, Comfort Core, I aim to address this. In these works, I use materials like foam, paper pulp, and oil paint, moving beyond acrylic to create true sculptural, textural surfaces. The collages I make from the screenshot scraps I've harvested retain the realism and relief of my earlier work, but with new patterns and braided textures. This project will consist of a new suite of sculptural paintings whose imagery will be photo-surreal abstractions, steeped in the language of online retail product photography and Photoshop collage. The fabrication processes will expand my investigation into various sculptural methods. My goal is to create relief paintings that act as a balm for the chaos and passions of life online, harnessing its manipulative lure into comforting physical three-dimensional forms.
I'm Margaret Pierce. I'm a citizen Potawatomi tribal member, and I'm a cartographer. I love cartography because it lets me write in 2 dimensions. That lets me keep relationships intact, reconnect stories to the sites they belong to, and place land at the center of the narrative. The purpose of this project is to intervene in public dialogue that assumes the Mississippi River is an object to be controlled and weaponized, and to do that by creating public cartographies that portray indigenous assumptions of the river as a living being and our relative. These will be a series of large-scale artworks installed along the river from mouth to headwaters. This past year, we launched the project on the section flowing between the St. Croix and Galena rivers, which are the 2 panels outlined in purple. The project is a collaboration with Ho-Chunk Nation Tippo, Prairie Island Indian Community Tippo, and citizens from Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska, with project partners at the Anderson Center and the Joe Davis Conservation Foundation. We're making 2 public artworks along this river stretch, an upriver panel to be installed in a city park and a downriver panel to be installed in a nature preserve. At each site will be 2 wood structures, like oversized park signs, with the map artworks on one side and wood artworks on the other. The project picks up themes from my previous work, including dialogism and large format compositions as introspective spaces completed by the reader. We've been interviewing tribal citizens about topics such as place names, plants, and the imposition of the locks and dams. The interviews are for the internal archives for each nation for their own people. From that archive, we'll select testimony to form the public narratives of the cartographic panels. We want the artworks to inspire a deepened understanding of what Indigenous relationships with the river have been all this time. And we want to make space for collectively imagining what living in balance with the river can and must look like. Miigwech, thank you.
The Aiken-Red House, an urban plantation built in 1820 at 48 Elizabeth Street in the heart of Charleston, South Carolina, was the home of William Aiken, Jr., a successful planter, politician, and slave owner. In the winter of 2025, I stood in the courtyard near the slave quarters which abut the rear of the main residence. I studied the sand-colored exterior walls with their leaf-green shutters, taking note of a servant's pulley bell near a second-floor window, used to summon the enslaved labor force at any moment, night or day. I hadn't considered that the rhythmic striking of a bell, an invitation to play and recess during my elementary school days, could be a sonic torture device, reminding the enslaved that all things, even time itself, were under the dominion of the plantation owner.
The Sound of Labor is a large-scale multimedia installation that features the layered ringing of bells to mimic their use in urban slave plantations. Composed of a walled surface made of distressed wooden planks and 14 mechanized vintage bells, each representing one of the 14 enslaved people that served the Aiken-Red household, Tom and Ann Greggs, and their son, Henry, Dorcas and Sambo Richardson, and their children, Charles, Rachel, Victoria, Elizabeth, and Julia, Charles Jackson, Anthony Barnwell, and 2 carpenters, Will and Jacob. A computer algorithm will mediate the striking of the bells at different intervals, gradually building to a cacophony of clanging sounds as all the bells are struck in steady succession, the discordant sound embodying the psychic violence of disruption and the conflation of the Black body with unrelenting labor.
I'm Jean Shen, and I'm standing on the corner of 8th and F Street Northeast in Washington, D.C., where my family ran a grocery store in the 1980s. For nearly 50 years, this corner market, run by successive Korean immigrants, survived at the crossroads of two diasporas. A Black community with deep roots in the city, a wave of Korean immigrants driven here by uncertainty of war. Two communities bound together by daily transactions.
얼마나 장사가 잘 돼서 사람들이 항상 꽉 차 있을 정도로 사람들이 많고 그랬는데 그만큼 또 위험했습니다. 위험한 곳에 누가 여기 들어오겠습니까? 한 달에 한두 사람이 강도에 의해서 죽어나갔습니다. 제일 어려운 환경에 있은 게 아마 한국 사람 같습니다. 그래서 저도 그 부류의 한 사람으로서 DC에서 장사를 하게 되었습니다.
Gentrification is closing in, and with it the legacy of Korean mom-and-pop shopkeepers in Washington, D.C. risks being erased entirely. My project, Unfinished Business, is not just a story about a family. It's a story about a place and what a community loses when a store closes. The market's remnants become the architecture of memory. Shelves that once held canned goods now hold photographs. The checkout counter, where transactions happened in silence, now record oral histories. I'm transforming it into something this neighborhood has never had. The store-turned community hub comes alive again. People come, they eat dumplings together, they ferment kimchi with elders, they eat. And somewhere in the shared labor and family recipes, forgotten stories begin to surface. This project lives in the intersection of public art, community archiving, and social practice. I'm building a temporary monument to the unfinished business of reconciliation, remembrance, and repair.
My name is Kentura Davis, and I'm an artist rooted here in Altadena, California. My creative capital project is called Rest Stops. Rest Stops is a post-wildfire garden initiative in Altadena, California. The plan for the garden is to stitch together a network of green spaces designed to heal both the land and community.
The Rest Stops project, to me, really sort of tapped into this notion of community renewal by creating sort of green space. And there's so much data on community gardening and health, community gardening and mental health, both in terms of people being able to participate in that project, but also the effects it has on the neighborhoods. These sort of interventions matter for community health and well-being. So having, just like we need a public library system, we need public parks, like these third spaces that are open to everyone, irrespective of their income, their identity, their age, are critical.
My project proposes adaptive gardens using local and native materials to support well-being, resilience, and ecological renewal. I'll engage with the community stakeholders to identify properties for the initiative and partner with homeowners to select from a catalog of native and edible plants, including species known for detoxifying soils and supporting local wildlife. The goal is to create landscapes that are both fire resilient and restorative. As families throughout Altadena rebuild, these spaces aim to help safeguard belonging, continuity, and rootedness in Altadena.
Luck is a trust fund, or a stepmom with a spare apartment. call back that pays.
This collaboration was inspired by Creatine's story and phenomenal range as a singer and performer. And it gives us all a chance to work together to redefine opera according to our shared vision as artists.
Our story centers around this image of the precipice, this dramatic height from which you might either fall or fly. And so we go on a journey of this character who's pursuing a life of meaning and love and survival and defending themselves in that pursuit.
Musically, this piece is anything from high camp to pure unapologetic emotion. It's lush and operatic, it's cheeky and an eye to the cabaret. It's very gay. And I think anybody can connect to it.
It's really the story about how relationships change us, the feelings of grief and how complicated they are, the feeling of discovering oneself, not only through drag, but through performing. It really is a story about queer resistance, resilience, and strength. And it's something I've always wanted to bring to stage.
I offer my voice to the land that holds me, not neutral, not without consequence. And something returns, carrying something I cannot name or claim as mine anymore. Sound moves like memory, shaped by where we are and how we listen. Nothing arrives untouched. There is no neutral ground. To be here is to be in relation. The land remembers, and the future is shaped by how we enter.
My name is Carmina Escobar, and I am a radical vocalist and intermedia artist. My work moves between performance, installation, and site-specific projects rooted in improvisation, embodiment, and place.
The project, The Future Was Always Sacred Because the Land Remembers, unfolds across 9 landscapes in the Southwest, places where land, history, and belonging remain unresolved. I work on site through voice, recording vocal actions in direct relation to each environment, sometimes with communities, sometimes alone. From each encounter, I gather small amounts of earth and clay. These materials become hybrid vinyl records, engraved with the voice captured in those spaces. They are played through sculptural devices that transmit sound through vibration, so it's not only heard, but felt in the body. The work takes form as installations where sound, material, and space are activated through presence and contact. We are living through distance, from land, from memory, from consequence. This work seeks to bring sound back into the body.
I don't know what the truth is. Really struggling with panic attacks that last for hours. And I think about my life and I think every 5 years something like this happens. There's these cycles that happen and it's this terrible depression. And this panic that is the worst part. It's so torturous sometimes. How do I take back my story? And from a documentary filmmaker, and that he wasn't doing anything wrong. More and more I think about it, it's like it's me. I keep wanting to edit myself. It's not the documentary. It's that I feel like I have to keep editing myself to try to figure out, why do you want to keep making things? Or the only value in this life that I've led through all of these diagnoses and psychiatric interventions and psych wards and being diagnosed with this and that and the other and all these being medicated for 25 years. How do I make anything with all of that going on? And how in the world am I supposed to turn that into something that could possibly be of service to anyone? And maybe together we could solve some of our problems, even if it is just solving the loneliness and feeling like you've been, I don't know, like you're out on an ice floe somewhere. I don't know, at the end of the day, I suppose I just want to embroider a frozen lake. I do. I don't know why. I want to stitch a screaming face into a frozen lake.
I am Devin Emery. I come from the Lenape and Nanticoke peoples. I live in Lenape-Hoking, and I'm a choreographer, dancer, registered nurse. My work is at the intersection of these body and spirit-based practices. I am incredibly grateful to have the support from Creative Capital to create the final multimedia choreographic work, Boiling Rain, at the conclusion of a nationally touring trilogy entitled My Mannequin Friends, centering medical mannequins. It is an honor to care for bodies in transition, and I invite you to join me. This body of work reimagines deathways in response to being a hospice and COVID nurse. It expands the walls of our Western medical setting to include audiences in dreaming of these honorable transitions together to care for our ill, our dying, our healthcare workers, and one another. This 10-year trilogy has paralleled my 10 years of being inpatient as an RN, and each work centers around yet another being passing away due to ingested colonial societal harms. After we care for the body with you, our audience, that being becomes an ancestor for the next iteration. I'm sitting here with two of my ancestors. That includes my cousin Vanessa Dion Flesher's quill work, and I will be joined by dancers Maura Wynne Donahue, Janita Castro, and composer Holland Andrews. We welcome you to join us for our final beloved Genie's transition into the ancestral realm. I look forward to you being a part of this grief movement I am building to practice the valuable lessons of a body shifting earth side into the spirit realm. The teachings and lessons that can be a balm in this time. See you there.
Four, five, six, seven, eight.
Hi, we are Lightning Rod Special. Our project is America Again. It's a new piece of theater that we're creating that's looking back at the last 250 years of American democracy.
Lightning Rod Special is a theater company.
We make original performance work from the ground up.
And we make work about lightning rod topics.
Hot button social issues.
Our work is ensemble generated. It's very physical and very cerebral. We utilize traditional research and performance research.
And what that means is that we're actually writing with our bodies in space. We try to create pieces of theater that are contemplative as well as kind of raucous and wild.
We make plays for people who don't think they like to see plays.
It's unabashedly entertaining.
And often very funny and satirical.
Because Lightning Rod Special works are all original, they are created by the people in the room. In this case, the initial prompt was, let's explore the American Revolution.
So we're imagining an American Revolution theme park of the future, following a group of reenactors that are compelled to perform scenes from the American Revolution again and again.
Revolution being something that is breaking away from the old and starting something new, but also revolution is a return to something that you've done again and again.
And the piece asks this question:
whether America is spiraling upwards towards its highest democratic ideals,
or are we digging a deeper pit every time we tell the nation's story?
Or spiraling downwards further into our founding sins. I guess this piece is different from other Lightning Rod special shows because I kind of hope it makes you love America in all the ways that it's complicated.
Whereas before we would have made works that made you think more critically about America, now the bizarro world thing is what can we find to love about America to
put the friction of that conversation onto the stage for audiences to witness.
Hi, my name is Gina Scotti. My project is called Furball. It's a new play that uses farce and satire to look at the failures of our gynecological healthcare system. The play begins when Sam finds a fur ball growing in their vagina made of cat fur.
Because you never wash your hands, and then you fuck me with your furry cat dick.
The play seeks to critique the failures of lack of research for gynecological issues, and the furball is a stand-in for STDs, STIs, and other gynecological issues that we have no or little research on. Throughout the play, Sam seeks help from a gynecologist and a support group, but neither can offer support or solutions for Sam's problem. I'm working on this project with my collaborator and director, Tara Elliott, and we've decided to use knitting as a stand-in for sex on stage to explore how sex can be staged alternatively, and also to have a physical action that can grow and add on to, so that throughout the play, the fur ball can physically grow and can become a tactile experience for both audience and performers.
Sex on stage can be really challenging, and with this project, we're really interested in breaking that down and opening that up and creating a visual language in which sex can be something that is joyful, that is playful, that is strange. And so this idea of using knitting and yarn to gesture at the sexual act is something we're really excited to explore.
Our goal with Furball is to bring together a community who may have suffered from gynecological issues and to dispel the shame that's been around it and the shadows that have been around for so long, and to allow us to have the space and reprieve to be able to find laughter in these issues and joy within our communities.
Hi, I'm Sharon Chohi Kim, and I'm creating Haenyeo, a hydro opera inspired by the women free divers of Jeju Island in Korea.
For generations, these women have harvested seafood without oxygen tanks, diving on a single breath, harvesting sustainably in a symbiotic relationship with the ocean. They are part of a matriarchal community where ecological knowledge and survival techniques are passed through the body, from grandmother to mother to daughter. Their labor is a living archive of sustainability, collectivity, and ecological intelligence. Their lives hold a kind of endurance and attunement with the earth that feels urgent right now. Haenyeo is a site-specific opera performed in and around a body of water. Vocalists are amplified by hydrophones. The pool becomes an instrument, a water orchestra. I think of each scene as a vocal sculpture. The accumulation of vocal repetition and collective gestures offers the audience a non-narrative, open-ended approach to the operatic form. As the work unfolds, harsh noise interrupts, tracing the pressures of climate change and industrialization on marine ecosystems and on the Haenyeo themselves. But the piece is not only about grief. It's about care, about interdependence, about hope. It moves through ritual and matrilineal gestures, honoring multi-generational women's knowledge and asking what it means to live less as isolated individuals and more as part of an ecology. It is about remembering our fluidity and our porous connection to the ocean and to one another.
As a Korean American artist, this work feels like a return and a responsibility. Through water, we remember we are already connected.